Hannity, breaking right now, we will describe in detail how the Democratic Party, they're a party of petulant children. They have no ideas, no solutions to help you, the American people. Now, they proved it all last night by sitting on their hands last night and pouting like children while President Trump was highlighting America's successes at the State of the Union address. And the out-of-touch liberal media hysterical over President Trump's speech that you, the American people, overwhelmingly approved of. We're going to show you the many unhinged examples. Also breaking right now, we have sources are telling us that the release of the highly classified memo showing massive FISA abuses against the Trump campaign could happen as early tomorrow, perhaps as late as Monday. Plus, some top-ranking FBI-DOJ officials are absolutely terrified at this hour about what that memo will expose, and they should be. We'll explain, and that and much more in tonight's Breaking News Opening Monologue. All right, the president delivered a soaring first State of the Union address. Almost 50 million Americans watched last night. And by the way, by far, more people watched the Fox News channel. We really want to say thank you so much for trusting us. We want to earn that trust every day. Now, the speech highlighted the president's many accomplishments, and he touted how he is now enacting Reagan-style conservative principles, and they're working. Now, of course, the vast majority of Democrats, led by negative Nancy Pelosi, they hated every single second of it, and it was obvious. And they sat on their hands with a scowl on their face, refusing to applaud things you would think they'd want to applaud. Historically low unemployment in the country. Now, just take a look at some of the examples of the Democrats just playing petty partisan politics. Take a look.
We are finally seeing rising wages. African-American unemployment stands at the lowest rate ever recorded. Hispanic American unemployment has also reached the lowest levels in history.
All right, we're going to have more on the Democrats' ridiculous behavior. That's coming up later in the show. You see, the left in America, they have no ideas. They have no solutions. They don't stand for anything except they're against President Trump. They hate President Trump. Now, Congressman Luis Gutierrez even walked out of the speech during chants of USA, USA, and his excuse? Oh, he had to get ready for an interview. White House Press Secretary Sarah Sanders is calling out Pelosi and the Democrats with some really, really powerful truth. Take a look.
I think Nancy Pelosi looks like that all the time. I think she should smile a lot more often. I think the country would be better for it. She seems to kind of embody the bitterness that belongs in the Democrat Party right now. I think last night was a good step forward. Hopefully they can let go of some of that, and they have to make a big decision. They need to decide, Chris, do they love America more than they hate this president? And are they willing to put some of those differences aside, come together, and do what's right for this country?
Now, wouldn't that be great? What a terrific point. Come together, fix the country, help the forgotten men and women. Well, will Democrats ever put the country before the hatred of the president? Interesting question to ponder. Now, we have our doubts. Remember, they supported 8 years of Obama's failure. We had 13 million more Americans on food stamps, 8 million more in poverty, the lowest labor participation rate since the 70s, the worst economic recovery since the 40s, the lowest home ownership rate in 51 years, and Obama accumulated more debt than every other president before him combined. And he was the only president never to reach 3% GDP growth in the course of his presidency in any one given year. And then you have the liberal mainstream media. They are in full breakdown, freak-out mode over the president's successful State of the Union address. You can't make this up. Their bias is so transparent.
What you saw tonight was President Trump, I think, and with one hand reaching out his hand to Democrats, and with the other hand holding up a fist.
If the president met with me after the speech, I would say to him, well, that was how not to give a unifying speech.
Again, sort of stoking, I think many would say, racial tensions by bringing up this issue of kneeling.
I think his rhetoric last night set things back. The way he sold immigration really offended a lot of Democrats that were listening in that room.
If that was an attempt at unity, he's got a lot of work to do. I go through these things, especially these teleprompter speeches he gives. It's not him, but you can tell he's reading it. He doesn't own it.
He was selling sweet tasting candy with poison in it. I thought it revealed Donald Trump's deep and almost sort of sad obsession with being liked. You tell me
what about that
room is supposed to respond like this to the great dictator?
No, but they're not supposed to sit on their hands.
Really?
All right, and that's not all. The whole network, fake news CNN, they went on full-on conspiratorial mode about the color of the First Lady Melania Trump's outfit. Now, this speculation is an utter disgrace, but sadly very predictable. Let's take a look.
Is there anything you want to tell us about her outfit?
You know, she's wearing a cream-colored suit there, which I find interesting. Remember last year, the female Democratic senators all wore white, a bunch of them to protest Trump's policies against women. So there was even a hashtag, women wear white. Listen, it could be a total coincidence, but I just find a lot of the stuff she does these days to look at it twice.
And NBC News, they can't give up their obsession with the, quote, Russia investigation, even moments before the State of the Union. This, too, a disgrace. Watch.
This is a president who's under criminal investigation right now for obstruction of justice with regard to the Russia investigation. So a lot going on in the backdrop.
There is a missing major figure in this hall tonight that we ought not to forget about, and that is the special prosecutor of the United States, who is at this hour probably meeting with his team.
He's not there,
where they go
hovers. He sort of hovers over the chamber, doesn't he?
That is an extraordinarily important part of what's going on in Washington, D.C.
An abject lesson. This shows you just how completely out of touch the liberal mainstream destroy Trump media really is. It didn't matter what the president said last night. The media had already predetermined that they were going to hate it. But, of course, you, the American people, you had a very different reaction to the State of the Union. Let's look at the CBS News poll. 75% of people who watch, they approved of the president's speech. And even fake news, the whole network, CNN, their poll showed that a combined 70% of speech watchers, they had a positive reaction. Now, if you just watched the media's hysterical coverage, you wouldn't know any of this, and you probably even think that everybody hated the speech. That's why on this program we call them the Destroy Trump media. Now, also important breaking news this hour. We have massive developments regarding the release of the 4-page classified memo exposing Obama-era surveillance of members of the Trump campaign and the Trump transition. And sources are telling me tonight that there is an internal debate at the White House about whether they should release the memo with other supporting documents. And I, for one, am for full transparency. Release it all. And I don't really want anything redacted. Maybe if it impacts sources and methods and security only. Make the memo public. And by the way, it's about getting the truth out, and that is scaring the living hell out of some people at the FBI and the DOJ tonight, and of course the Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein, and of course Peter Strzok. Now, according to the Daily Beast, Rosenstein, he's named in that memo, and according to other reporting, the Deputy Attorney General is responsible for extending the FISA warrant to literally spy on Trump campaign manager. Remember, the pretext was all under Carter Page. They went much further, and clearly Rosenstein is shaking in his boots tonight. Now, we're hearing from sources that he is the most scared individual in Washington right now. And at this point, it's all about self-preservation for him. Now, just look at what fake news CNN is reporting tonight. That President Trump asked Rosenstein if he was on his team. Now, someone might want to check Rosenstein's phone records and emails, because isn't it a little too convenient that when the walls begin to close in on him, especially after McCabe being fired, all of a sudden there's a targeted leak to make Rosenstein look better? Now, the FBI is also trying to attack the memo. And Peter Strzok, he's trying to distract away from his own scandals by selectively leaking information to CNN to try and make himself look better. Now, Sarah Carter, who will join us in a little bit, is reporting tonight that the U.S. intelligence agencies are joining the effort to block the memo from being released. They don't want us to see it. They don't want you to see it. You have liberal Senator Cory Booker is saying releasing the memo would be, quote, treasonous. And in a statement earlier, the FBI wrote in part, quote, with regard to the House Intelligence Committee's memorandum, the FBI was provided a limited opportunity to review this memo the day before the committee voted to release it. As expressed during our initial interview, we have grave concerns about material omissions of fact that fundamentally impact the memo's accuracy. So today, the FBI, they're trying to take shots at the memo. But yesterday, our own Catherine Herridge reported this. 2 senior FBI officials that reviewed the memo, quote, could not point to any factual inaccuracies. Now, the House Intelligence Committee Chairman, Devin Nunes, he's firing back with a powerful statement of his own. Here's what he said, and it's very revealing. Having stonewalled Congress's demands for information for nearly a year, it's no surprise to see the FBI and DOJ issue spurious objections to allowing the American people to see information related to surveillance abuses at these agencies. The FBI is intimately familiar with material omissions with respect to their presentations to both Congress and the courts, and they are welcome to make public, to the greatest extent possible, all the information they have on these abuses. Regardless, it's clear that top officials used unverified information in a court document to fuel a counterintelligence investigation during an American political campaign. Once this truth gets out, well, we can begin taking steps to ensure our intelligence agencies and courts are never misused like this again. Now, it makes perfect sense. The FBI would try to tear down or delegitimize that memo because the memo clearly, according to Devin Nunes, exposes top-ranking officials at the Bureau using an unverified Clinton bought and paid for dossier, as we have been telling you, as in part the justification to spy on an opposition campaign during an election and a president-elect and his team. Now, to be clear, the media will never report this. We're not talking about rank and file members who work every single day at the FBI, the DOJ, and the intelligence community. What we're talking about, and we're very specific, are a few bad actors in those communities that are on the verge of being exposed for committing massive constitutional violations. Now, that's why they're desperately trying to prevent the memo from coming out, from you having an opportunity to see it. And you may remember back in January, after almost a year of stonewalling Devin Nunes and the House Intel Committee, well, we know that Rod Rosenstein and FBI Director Christopher Wray, they went crawling into Speaker Paul Ryan's office, begging at the last hour after a year, don't give the House Intelligence Committee access to the Russia investigation-related documents. Nunes had to threaten to hold them in contempt before they would comply. And thankfully, to Speaker Ryan's credit, he held his ground in that meeting. Now, if they did nothing wrong, if they didn't do anything wrong, then why fight so hard to prevent Congress from seeing the documents? Release the memo, release the underlying documents with it, the documentation of it all. And if they did nothing wrong, well, then they were why are they trying to stop the memo from coming out? What don't top FBI and DOJ officials want you, the American people, to know? This is an important question. We're heading towards a showdown. The author of the best-selling book, Vengeance, former Speaker of the House, Fox News contributor Newt Gingrich is with us. They didn't want the information released in the beginning, and this is pretty powerful, this letter of Devin Nunes, the House Intelligence Committee chair. He's basically confirming what I suspect for a long time, that the Hillary Clinton bought and paid for dossier was used in part during an election season to get a FISA warrant to spy on an opposition party and then an incoming president. None of it was verified. If that happened, and we find out that happens, what would that mean to you?
Well, I mean, you have two things right here that are, I think, fascinating. The first is, it turns out there may have been collusion to undermine the American presidential election by a government bureaucracy. It just turns out that the bureaucracy wasn't Russian, it was American, and that it was the Department of Justice senior leadership and the FBI senior leadership. Now that, at one level, is a really frightening insight about the future and about the danger of a powerful police force deciding for the rest of us which politicians they're going to go after. The second thing that hit me, though, as you were talking, is there's this new movie out which glorifies the Washington Post, the printing of government documents, the courage of the Post leadership. You go back and take the whole period of the Pentagon Papers, the attitude of the New York Times, the Washington Post. Isn't it interesting that none of these papers are coming in and making the same demands? Of course we should publish this. Of course the American people should see it.
Where's the lawsuit?
Of course there's a right to know.
Maybe it'll be Hannity and company that has to file the lawsuit to get some of this information. The really dangerous thing here, and I'm making a very strong distinction because I have such great respect for the FBI and the DOJ and intelligence, but the powerful tools of intelligence we now have to get ISIS and Al-Qaeda and enemies of this country, if we turn it and politicize it and spy on opposition party candidates and use that information to destroy people, we've lost the country, Mr. Speaker. That's how serious that is to me.
Well, look, there's a whole pattern going back at least to the 1970s of people on the left who were genuinely worried that an intelligent state during the Cold War would acquire so much power that it could actually subvert the whole process. It's sad that almost none of those people are now speaking out about the current problem, because the people at the top, and I agree with you entirely, this is all a thin layer of largely politically appointed type people. It's not the great bulk of hardworking everyday folks out there trying to protect America and trying to enforce the law. But this thin layer, I think we're going to discover in the next few days, clearly conspired to mislead a judge in order to get an ability to spy, which was totally illegal. And I think that's part of why you saw McCabe leave. I think you're going to see some more people leave. I'm really shocked that Strzok is still there. I mean, after all the stuff we learned about him, I don't know why he's not gone already. And I think you're going to see more people have to leave. And then you're going to see whether or not, in fact, they get involved in a serious criminal investigation, because a lot of what they were doing wasn't just unwise. It was illegal, and they were really threatening the freedom and the rights of the American people.
But you know, what's amazing about this is this dossier. Fusion GPS said in testimony, I think it was before the Senate committee, they never verified it. Hillary Clinton never verified it. Then before the House Intel Committee, Fusion GPS is suggesting they tried to shop the salacious, stories of hookers and Ritz-Carlton and Trump and urinating in bed. They were shopping it and coordinating with the Clinton campaign. Now, Hillary Clinton clearly fixed a primary. She tried to use the dossier to lie to the American people in general. That dossier was used to get a warrant against an opposition candidate. And we've had a year of Trump-Russia collusion and no evidence. And the media in this country has ignored, I would argue, the biggest story in their lifetime. This is bigger than Watergate. That's like Watergate's like stealing a Snickers bar from a candy store or a drugstore in comparison. Is this hyperbole or am I accurate?
Well, I mean, I'm not sure I'm quite into the Snickers bar versus, say, stealing an entire automobile, but I know where you're going with this. I think it's remember, the elite media is part of the deep state. The elite media group has survived by being in collusion with the senior bureaucracy, the city of Washington, the senior reporters, the senior bureaucrats, the senior lobbyists. They all hang out together. They all talk to each other. They all compare notes. But you're exactly right about the scale of this. And this is what people, when they get to read this, what the American people need to understand is that the Obama administration, in a series of steps that clearly violated the law, tried to both protect Hillary Clinton and tried to destroy Donald Trump. And both actions were illegal. And we're now in a situation, I believe, where you're going to see a requirement in the near future for an independent counsel literally to clean out the senior FBI and the senior Justice Department, and to go after people who've left office who were part of the Obama team that was so clearly violating the law.
What do you make of this massive disconnect? The president has a State of the Union address. We have great news. We've got 2.4 million new jobs. We've got 2 million fewer people that are on food stamps. The president gives all this great economic success. People are now building factories and manufacturing centers, and taxes are down. Americans are getting a lot more money starting February 1st in their pocket. He's trying to keep the country secure. You get one reaction from the news media, and you get another reaction, even with the CBS poll and the CNN poll, that shows something very different. What do you say about that disconnect?
Well, I keep telling you, the elite media in the United States is not neutral. They're not referees. They're the offensive wing of the other team. And the elite media, and you saw some of this in the clips you had, some of which are frankly outrageously anti-Trump in a way that's almost bizarre. These are folks who are so deeply hostile to what Donald Trump is trying to accomplish that they are fully as much a part of the opposition as is Nancy Pelosi or Chuck Schumer. And that's part of why you're getting this unbelievably biased coverage. I must say, when I watched last night, and I saw the president say, we have the lowest black unemployment in history, And nobody in the Black Caucus could applaud. I thought to myself, I mean, who are they loyal to? If they're not happy that their constituents have a job, if they're not happy that the tax cuts really dramatically help their congressional districts, then who do they represent? I think this is a real challenge to the entire left-wing ethnic leadership in America.
We have that montage and a lot more coming up. Mr. Speaker, thank you. When we come back, the memo from the House Intel community could be released as early as tomorrow. Sarah Carter, Greg Jarrett, Congressman Matt Gaetz, as we continue our investigation. Stay with us. All right, joining us now with reaction to tonight's opening monologue, Florida Congressman Matt Gaetz, Fox News contributor Sarah Carter, and Fox News legal analyst Greg Jarrett. I have a source, Matt, that actually suggested to me that is as shocking as this 4-page memo is going to be, the foundational information by which it was written, it's going to come on the heels of it, and it's going to be like a slow drip. There are those that are saying, release it all. Would that be a good idea?
That's what so many of us have called for. We believe the memo should be released and that supporting documentation that doesn't reveal sources or methods should also be available for the American people to review. But it's important to note, Sean, this memo lays out facts. These are not opinions. This is not conjecture. These are facts assembled by the Intelligence Committee staff and then presented to the members of that committee. I have every confidence that this will persuade the American people that we've got to make major changes in not only the people that are currently in some of these agencies of government, but also in the regulatory structure so that this type of behavior never happens again.
But if it's a document that fueled an intelligence investigation during a political campaign that's unverified, isn't that basically saying in Devin Nunes' statement that the dossier bought and paid for by Hillary was actually used to get a FISA warrant in an election year against an opposition party candidate? I think my reading comprehension is pretty good.
Well, Sean, as you know, to answer that question with particularity would violate the terms of our non-disclosure agreement. I can say that I believe that many of the issues that have been discussed in the public square. You can confirm
I have good reading comprehension skills. Can you confirm that?
Undoubtedly. You demonstrate them each and every night on television.
All right, Sarah Carter. What we see tonight, to me, is so transparent and obvious. Rod Rosenstein wants to look better. He's scared to death. And Peter Strzok wants to look better. Why he's even still working at the FBI is a mystery to me. But you have sources tonight, and you're breaking some new information.
That's right. I mean, it appears that there's a concerted effort on the part of the FBI, members of the intelligence community, and the Department of Justice to try to force the president to delay the release of the memo. And they're doing this in an effort to buy time, according to sources that I've spoken with, so that they can leak information to try to find a way to either discredit the memo or placate those members of the DOJ that don't want to see this released. Sean, they are terrified about the American people finding out what's in this memo, because it does expose members of the DOJ, members of the FBI, and others violating. And it names names, and it actually shows extensive FISA abuse. This needs to be made public. The American people have a right to see this, and the intelligence people I've spoken with and U.S. officials who are familiar with this memo say this memo in no way violates the intelligence community's standards as far as disclosing anything that would be related to national security.
Let me go to Greg Jarrett. Greg, I think you have equally...
Let me interrupt right there, Sean. If people are trying to convince the president not to release this memo, they're not going to be successful. He said on the floor last night when Congressman Jeff Duncan was pressing him that he was going to release it, and he said, imagine what would happen if we didn't. So he knows the American people are demanding it.
Greg Jarrett, I'm reading Devin Nunes' memo back in response to the FBI. Rod Rosenstein, remember, just within hours, they were looking for these documents for a year. And just hours before the deadline, it was Rosenstein going, begging, pleading with Paul Ryan. Don't release it. The same thing is going on today about the memo here. I assume you have the same reading comprehension skills that I do.
Right.
And what I'm reading is that the dossier was used, at least in part, to get a FISA warrant to spy on an opposition party candidate in an election year. And that dossier was full of Russian lies paid for by Hillary.
And that would be a crime called deprivation of rights under color of law, punishable by 10 years. You can't use a false document to spy on somebody.
Or unverified, but it is false.
And if they alter the 302 forms, the witness forms, well, that's obstruction of justice. Look, Rosenstein and the FBI must think everybody in America is really stupid. That they're compounding their felony by trying to cover it up. At first, the pretense of, oh, you're going to reveal sources and methods. They've now dispensed with that fiction, and now they're saying, well, it's omissions. Well, they're the ones who are responsible for the omissions. They've been trying to obstruct a legitimate investigation by Congressman Gates and others on Capitol Hill, which have oversight responsibility under the Constitution.
Sarah Carter, let's talk about the altering of the 302s, because this came up in the McCabe firing. This is beyond serious. You have reporting on this. Can you share it tonight?
Well, what we know is this, and what I know is this. I've spoken to a number of sources who have said that McCabe had actually asked members of the FBI, an FBI official, actually, to alter the 302. Whether the 302s, those are the witness interviews that the FBI conducts with the witnesses.
And who do they want to alter?
Well, I don't want to talk about that just yet until we verify it, but there was one person in particular that they believe McCabe had asked the FBI agents to alter the 302s. And I think this is significant. It doesn't mean that they altered the 302s, but even the fact that if they were asked, allegedly, if this actually happened, that is a huge violation, Sean. And it's something that they're going to be investigating.
Because we're running out of time, what you're saying is, assuming we got the memo tomorrow, that means the day after, and that means next week and the week after, that we're going to find even more abuse than what it is that I'm talking about, right?
Oh, absolutely. And another very important question here is, when the warrant was issued, who kept reauthorizing the warrant over and over again?
Was it Rod Rosenstein?
There is a lot of discussion that it was Rod Rosenstein who kept reauthorizing the warrants based on faulty information.
Gates, wait a minute. That would mean Rod Rosenstein, the guy that appointed the special counsel Mueller, could have extended a FISA warrant without asking you to reveal anything. Let's say that that's true. Doesn't that mean that Robert Mueller's investigation was predicated on false information based on a false FISA warrant?
Sean, this is an issue where some Republicans disagree. I believe that the information in this memo absolutely proves that the Mueller investigation is built on a rotten foundation, that the entire Mueller probe is a fiction, that it never should have been started in the first place but for bad acts. And so that's my view, and I would suspect that most of the American people would hold that view once they read this memo.
All right, release the memo. Let the American people see it. Release the supporting documents. Methods, sources, national security. Beyond that, release it all. All right, thank you all. When we come back, Dr. Sebastian Gorka, Dan Bongino, they weigh in on this growing controversy. Straight ahead. So the president gave a powerful State of the Union address. He praised the nation and called for bipartisanship to pass an American agenda that works for us, works for you. Let's take a look.
Let's begin tonight by recognizing that the state of our union is strong because our people are strong. This, in fact, is our new American moment. There has never been a better time to start living the American dream. So to every citizen watching at home tonight, no matter where you've been or where you've come from, this is your time. If you work hard, if you believe in yourself, if you believe in America, then you can dream anything. You can be anything. And together, we can achieve absolutely anything. Here tonight is Preston Sharp, a 12-year-old boy from Redding, California, who noticed that veterans' graves were not marked with flags on Veterans Day. He decided all by himself to change that. Preston's reverence for those who have served our nation reminds us of why we salute our flag, why we put our hands on our hearts for the Pledge of Allegiance, and why we proudly stand for the national anthem. Tonight, I am extending an open hand to work with members of both parties, Democrats and Republicans, to protect our citizens of every background, color, religion, and creed.
All right, here with reaction, former Deputy Assistant to the President, Fox News National Security Strategist, Dr. Sebastian Gorka, former Secret Service agent Dan Bongino. You know, so the President takes on, in God, he brings up the culture wars. In God we trust, the national anthem, we stand for our flag, we're proud. He also talks about, you know, this is a new American moment. This is your time. He talks about, you know, this America, the era of economic surrender being over. He talks about energy, he talks about its successes, he talks about security, he talks about defeating ISIS. Dr. Gorka, and I watch a bunch of Democrats sitting on their hands looking angry that things have turned around in just one short year.
Look, Sean, we expect them to be partisan, to be childish, to be churlish. But what do we now know from analysis of the video footage? Several of them, these are people that we pay for, are sitting there playing video games on their phones. What does that say about their lack of respect for that building that they're in? Forget about who the president is. They are in the people's house. They represent us. They represent their constituents, and they're going to play computer games. It's bad news for democracy in general, but you know what? It's bad news for the Democrats, so I'm not worried. They didn't get one vote yesterday for November. In fact, with their response, that weird response from a member of the Kennedy clan afterwards, they proved yet again they are disconnected from the American people. And Sean, most important of all, they don't understand, they still don't understand what happened on November the 8th, 2016.
I think that's a big part of it. Dan Bongino, we talked a little bit about this after the speech last night when we came on later, and that is the lowest level of African-American unemployment in history. Same with Hispanic American unemployment, lowest ever. 17-year low for women in the workplace. And all these jobs created, all these businesses coming back, all this opportunity and energy that he's opened up. They can't even clap once. And it begins to raise the question, do they want us to succeed? Are they unhappy that he's successful because it makes their last 8 years look so bad?
No, they don't want us to succeed, Sean. I mean, can I just be candid with you? I'm not talking about voting Democrats out there, so don't tweet me, okay? I always get hate mail after this. I'm talking about the Hill Democrats and the partisan far-left extremist liberal hacks. They hate the country. They hate economic freedom. They hate Donald Trump. They hate everything about us.
I don't think they hate the country. I think, look, I have friends that are on the left. I think they love their own power. And instinctively they know that 8 years we had failure. And that success represents a demise of their ideology and philosophy. That scares them.
I think the voting Democrats of America are probably a patriotic group we have political differences with. The radical far-left extremists, I have to disagree with you. They hate the country. They can't stand the idea of freedom. They just don't like it. There's something about the ability to control your own lives that they can't stand. But, you know, for the first time, Sean, we have a president who understands the difference between the message and messaging. This guy gets it. Think about the way he talks in contrast to focus group tested Republicans. When he talks about Americans, he calls them dreamers. Taxes, it's your money. Obamacare, it's a disaster. You know, the border, build the wall. Contrast that with old Republicans.
It goes to the core of who they are. And that their ideologies failed. All right, Dr. Gorka, I want to go back to the FISA memo. And there is talk now of releasing the corresponding documents with it. Some are saying, but that might include some redactions. For example, sources, methods, secrets. You know, so there might be a need for it, but I think I'm generally in favor of full transparency. Your thoughts?
Sean, Devin and his team have done incredible work for months and months and months. They have been scrupulous. I know who these people are. Most important thing now, forget about the other material. The memo must be released unredacted, ideally tomorrow. No changes, no amendments. This is a congressional document the people of America need to know. Then the rest can come later. But the memo has to be untouched and released. And back to Dan's point. one very important thing. What we saw last night is a clear example. The Democrats love power. The speech last night was about loving America, like the president does, and it was illustrated for everybody to see.
All right, we're going to have to run. We're a little short on time. Thank you both for being with us. All right, we're going to show you the lowlights, how disgraceful the left's behavior was last night. You won't see this elsewhere in the media, I can tell you that. That's straight ahead. All right, during President Trump's address, the left showed the country just how low they're willing to go. Well, not to mince words, their behavior, frankly, was just downright disgraceful. And they proved that they'll play petty politics at every turn. But watch how the Congressional Black Caucus literally reacted to President Trump saying that African-American unemployment is at an all-time low. Take a look.
African-American unemployment stands at the lowest rate ever recorded.
One person clapping. Now, unfortunately, it doesn't stop there. Then a chant of USA broke out during the speech, and Democratic Congressman Luis Gutierrez, he abruptly walks out. He says he has to prepare for an interview. Watch this. Well, I don't want to recognize the one Democrat, Senator Joe Manchin, who's criticizing his Democratic colleagues who didn't stand for the president at all. But Joe Manchin did vote against repeal and replace, did vote against tax cuts for the people of West Virginia. But anyway, take a listen to this.
Did you see disrespect on the parts of Democrats?
And I've seen it on both sides. I was there when Obama gave speeches. I was there in that horrible night when he said, "You lie." Yeah. Okay, and I saw them not standing. That was disrespectful. And I said, this is not how I was raised in West Virginia, and the family I was raised in. And then I saw last night the disrespect. You know, you respect the office.
But what if they disagree with what he said?
You can disagree. I can stand up and still disagree and respect, but I want to move forward.
Joining us now, nationally syndicated radio talk show host. He's with the Salem Radio Network, Larry Elder, Fox News correspondent at large, Geraldo Rivera. Geraldo, for the first time in the 8 years, we're seeing a groundswell, a shift. The economy's coming roaring back. Jobs are coming back. Manufacturing's coming back. 2.4 million more people working, 2 million fewer people on food stamps. If you can't clap for the American people on that, why are you even there if you're supposed to be a public servant?
I think, Sean, that Senator Manchin is right. I mean, we have had this kind of rudeness and disrespect for many years, certainly in the Obama administration. I think that the Congressional Black Caucus last night, though, notched it up one. I think that they were so absolutely profoundly disrespectful that I found it disheartening. I mean, there are times, even in the worst of the McConnell-Obama feuding, there are times, though, where you stand, I stand, you sit, I stand, you sit. But there are those issues in the middle, like the historically low minority unemployment, like the 12-year-old kid putting the flags on the graves, like the call for $1.5 trillion in infrastructure, where all Congress should stand together. We only get one president at a time. And this night, this State of the Union, and then the monstrously high ratings that Fox News got is an indication that the American people want to give this president a chance. He had a rocky start, but he's cruising now, and they want to give him a chance. And that kind of disrespect, I agree with Sebastian Gorka, didn't earn the Democrats a single vote.
Larry.
Well, Joe Manchin mentioned Joe Wilson saying, you lie. I don't know why the left brings that up all the time. Joe Wilson apologized that night, apologized again the next day, and he still can't live it down. I've never seen this level of disrespect towards any president, including George W. Bush. In the 8 years of the Obama administration, I don't recall anybody walking out like that. And if they had, I dare say the next day the headlines would have been, this guy is a racist. The thin reasons that Donald Trump has been prosecuted or persecuted for collusion so far is a joke. If the same evidence were applied to the Obama administration for the first 10 months, that some staffer had a meeting with a Russian person who might have had dirt on my opponent, and therefore I'm now under investigation for collusion, a word that people couldn't even define, the country would be on fire.
Tomorrow, Geraldo Rivera, we may very well get that memo, and that memo may confirm that the Hillary Clinton bought and paid for dossier served as a foundation for a FISA warrant to spy on an opposition candidate and incoming president. If that turns out to be it, what does that mean to you as a constitutional lawyer?
It shakes me to my core. It is very unsettling if indeed this partisan document was the basis for the FISA warrant. Then shame on whoever manipulated this process. Well, you know, let's cool it a little bit. I think that, first of all, congratulations to you and the team of investigators you've had. I think that but for your efforts, I think this whole issue would have died away. But now, if indeed the Steele dossier is the basis for the FISA warrant that got Carter Page, that ultimately trapped General Flynn, that caused the president all of this turmoil and upset and distraction, then shame on the DNC, shame on the Democrats, and
you can't
ultimately
lie to a
shame
court.
on the people in the FBI and the DOJ.
You can't hand an unverified document over to a court to get a warrant in a presidential election year. Larry, we'll give you the final word.
Sean, let's say this. You have the Black Lives Matter people and their supporters all talking about institutional racism and how widespread police misconduct is, including illegal profiling. But somehow the DOJ and the FBI are beyond reproach. That doesn't make any sense. Let's look at it and find out where this goes.
All right, we gotta roll.
And as I said before, no matter what happens, Donald Trump is going to be in office for 7 more years. They better get used to it.
When we come back, and thank you both, an incredible video of the day and your comments as you speak out on the Hannity hotline. Straight ahead. All right, time for our video of the day. Massachusetts Congressman and the grandson of Robert Kennedy delivered the Democratic rebuttal to the State of the Union last night, and to the amusement of many on Twitter, social media, his lips were kind of shining in the spotlight. It looked weird. Here's what Kennedy had to say about the ongoing mystery earlier today.
Twitter had a field day with your shiny lips. So did you bring your chapstick this morning?
I, oddly enough, decided to go a little bit light on the chapstick this morning. More on the coffee, light on the chapstick, which is probably a wise choice.
All right, mystery solved. Giving the rebuttal is always hard, but at least we didn't have to listen to Nancy or Chucky or any of those socialists like Bernie Sanders. All right, time for the Hannity hotline. Time for you to speak out. Let's hear what you have to say.
You've kind of become here lately awfully annoying, grandstanding talk. You need to tighten up, son.
I want to tell you you're doing a good job, and Hannity stands for honest, authentic news, no idiotic, treasonous yuck. Thank you very much for exposing all this corruption on the Democratic Party. Good luck.
Wearing blue jeans to work with boots and whatever you talk, what do you do? I mean, what is your job title? To me, you should be riding along the backside of a dump truck picking up trash the rest of your life. That's what you are to me, is trash. Jump in that trash bin with them.
I'm a talk show host. I'm an opinion journalist. I'm an advocacy journalist. Sound off. 877-225-8587. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have left this evening, but let not your heart be troubled. Tomorrow may be memo day. Laura Ingraham is standing by in our nation's capital, the sewer. I couldn't get out of there soon enough.
Okay, well, Hannity, by the way, I want to take issue with that last caller who accused you of like this horrible thing of being a trash man. What's wrong with being a trash man? You find Southerners who are elitist in your callers. I don't understand that. That's just nasty.
I worked at a restaurant once. I used to have to take the trash, fill up the van, and dump it in the dump. You want to hear about that story?
He painted houses. He did He wasn't work construction. He dug ditches. Well, I was a waitress. I got fired, but I was a waitress.
Of course you got fired. You probably yelled at the people. It's a service industry.
This is okay. You better quit while you're ahead, Hannity, right now. You better quit while you're ahead. All right.
Have a good show.